I was playing for a team called the Top Guns, and my earliest soccer memory was, playing with them. So we were playing the Tigers. We were playing the Tigers on base, and I took one right in the stomach, and I crumpled like wet toilet paper.
Was there a moment or a person that you interacted with that taught you something that resonated? Hello, and welcome to the Love Soccer podcast, where we talk about our passion for the game from youth all the way to adulthood. I am Jonathan Janik, and joining me today is Micah Porter, fellow soccer coach, fellow soccer dad. Micah, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just start off, let's set the table for the listeners. Where are you from? Where have you traveled? And in how many different places have you played soccer?
Sure. So my dad was in the military, so I grew up in a couple of different places, but I started playing soccer in California in the late 80s, early 90s. And then I moved to New Mexico shortly after that. And that's where I really started most of my soccer career, was in New Mexico, playing in the eastern part of the state. And then our final move was to Oklahoma, and that's where I played high school and through college. And then I played intramurals and pickup games through college, while I was playing for the university. And then I'm active duty military. So when I got onto those teams, again, intramurals and base teams through the last 15, 20 years, just kind of playing wherever I could.
How about any pickup games or any league games overseas?
Um, let's see here. No, I wasn't privileged to get into any. Yeah, I did play in Afghanistan. I got to spend a summer abroad there, and I did get to play. It was basically indoor. We didn't have an outside field, but so I played indoor in Afghanistan.
So, close your eyes metaphorically and think about for a moment to the first memory that you have playing soccer. Where were you? What were the circumstances? Go for it.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this actually earlier today because, talking about you mentioning the podcast to me and kind of what you're going for. I started thinking about when I started playing in California, and that was when I started playing. So had it been like 89, 90, so 8, 9 years old. And I was playing AYSO, so American Youth Soccer Organization, I think is what it was. And I was playing for a team called the Top Guns. You can imagine where that name came from. And my earliest soccer memory was, playing with them and, sitting on my floor in my room and kind of had like a deck of cards and was planning out how do you make passes and how how you could do this and get to the goal and score. And then it kind of got me to a funny memory that my mom always shares. So we were playing the Tigers. Don't ask me when, but we were playing the Tigers on base, and I took one right in the stomach, and I crumpled like wet toilet paper. It was one of those like point blank, 8 years old, like just crushed me. And I remember on the sideline, kind of crying, kind of trying to like pull myself out of it. And my mom's like, "Well, you ready to go in?" Or I don't remember if I told my mom or the coach, but something along the lines of like, those Tigers can't get this Top Gun down." And I remember going back in the game and playing. I don't know who won, don't know if anybody scored, but that's like the earliest. That's my earliest soccer memory that I have
That's
playing,
awesome.
was taking it in the gut and then telling the coach, like, I'm a Top Gun, these Tigers aren't going to do this to me, kind of thing.
That is awesome. You're 8, you're 9?
Yeah, 8 or 9 years old. Yeah, because it had to have been, I was in California in like 89. I think we left in 90. So 7, 8 years old, maybe.
We've all, when we've played, we've all taken a shot to something at some point. And it's really funny to think about like when kids take it and the parents right away, kind of like take 3, 4 steps and they gasp and they're like, is my child okay? Or is that player okay? And many times it just takes like a couple seconds and everyone like bounces back on up as if like we're made out of rubber, right? All right. So who was it that introduced you to soccer? Who do you think, like, where did those influences come from?
Oh, good question. I don't think I had an influence like that. I just think that I was growing up, and it was just normal to play. It was normal to play all the sports, right? So did soccer a lot. I played baseball. I was into basketball. I ran track in grade school. I was the kicker my senior year in high school. I don't think there was any one individual or any one thing that I was like, oh, I want to play soccer. It was the sport that we registered for at the time. And everybody played because we were on post, and so like all your classmates played soccer, or 60% of them played soccer, and then 60% of them played basketball. So I think, yeah, I don't think there was an individual who was like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life, kind of thing. It was just kind of a normal thing to get into those sports.
Was there a moment or a person that you interacted with that you think to who taught you something that resonated, that you carried with you, that you built upon? So if you think about, those early years.
So I guess there's two things that come to mind really. So one, as a seventh grader in New Mexico, I got to play varsity. And that sounds pretty amazing. Like, wow, this kid's great. He's a seventh grader. He's playing up at varsity. No, we just needed numbers. And I just happened to be slightly better than some of the other folks that had played. But I think we only had like 20 people on the team, and that included girls. I think there was two girls that played with us. So, kind of having that experience, exposure early to soccer. And I had a friend who was, gosh, he was like 6'2" in seventh grade. So he was like just massive. And he was playing as well. Much different player than I, because I was only like 4 foot nothing, barely 90 pounds. So that's like the first kind of interaction. I think that's the first kind of like significant moment that kind of carried with me. Like I saw how he carried himself. I saw how he competed against these players. I think understanding what my strengths were at that time. Like I wasn't going to body anybody. I wasn't going to be physical or outrun anybody. And so I had to learn the game a little bit differently. The second person, or second thing I would say is I had a coach in Oklahoma, Coach Johnson, and he was just he and Coach Turville were like the first real soccer coaches I think I had through my development. And they helped us out a lot with, this is how you think about the game, and this is how you can communicate, and this is how you play every position because it helps you better in all these other positions. So I think those two areas, or those two kind of events, especially Coach Johnson and Coach Turville, because they were really the coaches we had through those really formative years of mine, like seventh or eighth and ninth grade, I think eighth and ninth grade when I was still playing rec. Yeah, those were some pretty strong. I think those were probably the strongest influences I had.
So those coaches, let's kind of like unpack them a little bit. So let's take Coach Johnson. Um, was there either a specific kind of activity? Like think back to practices. What were they like? What did they feel like? What was the interaction with your other teammates? What was his philosophy? Go ahead. Let's unpack that.
Oh gosh, I don't think he had a philosophy. I think he just knew. I think he just knew how to have a good time. I remember one of the practices he had us take off our shoes, and so we played in our socks. And we were like, why the heck would you play in your socks? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. You got cleats for a reason. So I remember him have us taking our shoes off and kind of understanding like how we could play with our socks, and then put your shoes back on. Now, what's the difference? How do you feel? How does it feel? How does the ball feel differently now that you have your shoes back on? I remember we did that a couple of times.
All right. So you're in seventh grade. You're playing against seniors. Describe what it was like, if you can recall, going up against guys who were 10th, 11th, 12th grade. They're massive. So,
Yeah,
what position did you play? Like, how did you play? How did you react to that?
I played as an. I played as a midfielder. I think I played as a wide midfielder, not a winger per se, or right mid, left mid, whatever it was. And I remember just like I knew I had to control the ball, but I also knew that I had to play it early because as soon as I made contact, like there was it's high school, so it's a little more aggressive. So I remember having to play quicker. And the strengths that I really relied on was the fact that I was lower to the ground than they were. So I could potentially, have more agility, more quickness to kind of bounce out of those areas. Yeah, that's what I remember most. Well, I also broke my arm during it too. I was receiving the ball on the sideline. The dude schwacked me. I flew off the field, broke my arm. Gosh, I remember. Yeah, that was fun.
That
Not at the
sounds.
moment, but it was fun.
Were there other players that you looked at as mentors, or that were people that you looked up to, and you're like, I'm going to try and match what they're bringing, or you would go to them and ask for insights?
Yeah, not as a seventh grader. Yeah, I wasn't that smart to ask for insights from the seniors. But I mentioned one of the guys that I played with, who was also a seventh grader at the time, who's big, 6'2". His name was Nick Mearsma. Oh gosh, yeah, Nick Mearsma. He's a pastor now somewhere, I think. But he was one of the guys I looked up to, not just because he was taller, but like he had a very good presence about him. Like he knew his capabilities. He knew how to use his body. That was an attribute or a characteristic of my game that I didn't have, mostly because of my size, right? And then there was another guy on the team. I don't remember what his name was, but I remember him being very ambidextrous, right? He could use both feet pretty well. And I remember asking him, like, how did you get so good at using your left foot versus, you know, because we didn't know, no one worked on weak foot at that time of their
Sure.
lives. No one
Yeah.
did. And he was saying something about he went to a camp or got picked up for some sort of team, and his coach made him play left-footed the entire time. So he spent the summer, couple weeks, whatever it was, always playing left-footed. So he was very good left-footed because he was kind of forced into that situation.
Now we're focusing for the last few minutes on the J or on varsity experience in high school, but what about youth at the same time? So were you also participating and playing in youth leagues at the same time as seventh, eighth, ninth grade?
I actually played club or travel at the time for a team out of Clovis because they were a bigger town, and so I still played club at that time or rec at that time. So we were going to places like Roswell and Albuquerque and Canyon, Texas, and
Yeah.
Amarillo and Lubbock because that was kind of the area that we were in, playing games, playing youth travel games at that time. Ninth grade, 10th grade, throughout high school. Once I finally moved to Oklahoma, is kind of the same thing. We had a team. I think my ninth grade year, I think we had a team in Altus, and then for the rest of those 3 years that I was there, that I was playing, we actually had to go to Lawton, and we joined a team in Lawton. There's three of us that joined a team in Lawton, and so we played with the Lawton travel team those 3 years growing up. Played Oklahoma City. Mm,
What were those experiences like? Did you have, higher level coaches? Was it the same? Was it just kind of like dad who sort of knew something and just kind of like had one or two drills that were somewhat appropriate?
yeah, the teams in Lawton were well. I think in Clovis, it was just somebody's dad who was a little bit more inclined to soccer. I think growing up, I don't really recall. In Oklahoma, I think had a we had a coach. I think he either played or had been coaching for years, so it was a little more higher level coaching. And especially in Oklahoma, where a lot of the teams we played were out of Oklahoma City, where there's it's very much like the DMV, high concentration of teams kind of thing. So it was pretty competitive, and we did have a better. I think we did have a coach who was grooming us to play at that next, kind of pushing us to play at that next level and develop a little bit more, especially going up through high school.
So seventh, eighth, and ninth, I'm going to assume was a struggle in varsity soccer. But then, I
Yeah,
mean, when you're starting to come of age, 10, 11, 12, what changed or didn't change?
I got bigger. I put on a couple extra pounds. Finally hit my height of 5'5" kind of thing. I think it was playing more and just having an opportunity to play more at higher levels, right? So playing playing teams from Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Texas, those are challenging teams. Those are a good competitive environment to kind of grow up on. And coming in as 10th grade, having played a little bit more, high school got a little bit easier, so to speak, because I was playing a little more frequently. I wasn't doing any training by myself. No one had the idea to train on your own, but I was just playing a little bit more. So I think that made that transition to high school because a lot of the guys that we were playing in high school were guys we played in the club.
What was the coaching philosophy like or the playing philosophy like when you were in high school?
Yeah, we were kind of like a chameleon. Our high school team. We didn't have a lot of tactics. We played a lot of long balls, a lot of route one type stuff.
Yeah.
We had a striker who would constantly flick the ball on, and we're like, dude, you're the highest person up the field. Who are you flicking the ball on to? Because we didn't have the idea of like running in behind him, right? That wasn't part of what we thought.
It's a
We
great
weren't very
move.
possession oriented. It is a great move, and
It's a
if,
great
if
move.
everyone's paying attention.
Yes.
We didn't do a whole lot of possession. I think we tried to outrun everybody. We had one of the other guys I played high school with, John McAllister. He moved in from Delaware and he played ODP. And I remember the first game was against Chickasha, and they were a pretty tough opponent. I think we played him preseason, and he got on the ball and just got pressed immediately. And he's like, it's so much. He was like, it's so much faster paced. Like typically in his growing up in Delaware, right? He was able to pass the ball and kind of make some connections, a little bit more possession than what we were focused on. All of our stuff was just like, 1-2 and then get the ball out as fast as you can.
Your playing career in high school. So did you continue to gravitate towards the outside mid or what kind of roles did you have on the team?
I played, so as a freshman, I played as an outside mid. Sophomore, junior year, I was a sweeper and a six stopper. So we played a sweeper stopper. And then even more as a junior and as a senior, I shoot, I played all over the place. I think I remember one game I was up top, one game I was in the middle. I did play a lot of center mid just because I was a lot more physical and a little more willing to give up the ball and kind of fight for it. Just kind of how I guess that style of play was.
Do you have a favorite moment playing in the sweeper position?
Um, Okay, so the memory that comes to mind, we were playing a new team in Bethany, Oklahoma. I think it was Bethany High School. I don't know. There's lots of high schools up in Oklahoma City, but I think it was Bethany. And I remember stepping up and winning the ball. And then I played like two or three 1-2s, kept my run going because I was in the middle of the field, and I played it out wide. And then I cut across my defender and scored. I think that was my senior year. I didn't score a whole lot from sweeper center back
No,
position,
imagine
but that
not.
was one of the goals I did score.
So, what was your goal celebration?
Oh gosh, I don't even I don't even remember. I don't even remember.
Well, if it were today, what do you think your goal celebration would have been now that you've had plenty
Oh,
of
I
video
definitely hug
game?
the guy. Definitely hug all the guys who kept the ball going because I hate to make a 40-yard run and then no one reward me with the ball.
All right, so you're playing soccer in adulthood, in your 20s, your 30s, and beyond. What are some special moments that you recall during any of those years?
So I had some good moments when I was in California playing again when I was at tech school because we played in Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, somewhere out there. Those moments were fun because those were some good games. I wasn't quite out of my it was the closest thing I got to high level college soccer because I played 2 years in college and then I transferred universities and so I was playing more pickup games and just kind of intramurals the last couple of years of college and it was really cool to be on the base team at that time because a lot of those guys are still college age and we were playing teams that were more college age so the games were faster, the games were really competitive. Um, and that was kind of like my only real introduction to that high level collegiate soccer that I wasn't able to get to my first 2 years of school. And then probably the best memories I have were actually in my previous duty station. So I was in Omaha and got to play for the base team there. And we played a 3-5-2, and I was an outside left back. And the only reason why I was an outside left back was because nobody else wanted to play as a left wing back. So I got to play a lot. But I remember we went down to Texas to play in a tournament, and I had one game I had like three or four crosses left footed. All across the face of goal, so that was a big moment, right? Because you spend your entire life trying to figure out how to kick left footed, and then finally in this tournament, the Armed Forces tournament, finally got to do it. So those are some highlights from the 20s and 30s. Just getting into play with teams that were much higher level than I had experienced at any time previously.
So, how would you describe your soccer community? What's the soccer community like on base as an adult?
Um, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. Guys come from all over the place, so they all have different experiences. Some people have played overseas. Some people have played. Some people haven't stopped playing. If you get those really young guys, they have never stopped playing. So it's a good exposure to a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts on how to play because it's a very big melting pot of where everyone just kind of came from and what their experiences were growing up. So it was kind of cool.
You've gotten to play on a lot of teams. And so, what are the two most favorite teams that you played for and why?
I have to go all the way back to high school, like my junior year of high school, and that one was good because the senior class was a bunch of really gifted athletes, and I think there was 4 or 5 guys that started with us, and they were 2 and 3 sport athletes, right? So they played basketball, they ran track, and like that was just the team that meshed well together. Good group of guys. Not a whole lot of there wasn't a whole lot of cliques. There were guys who were their own individuals, but I think that we were able to actually play really well together. And yeah, that was probably one of the best teams I've played for, even talent wise. Like we were playing teams. So Lawton always beat us. There's three schools from Lawton. Lawton always beat us. And that was the first year that I remember playing that we took two of three from Lawton teams. And we played Chickasha to a draw, I think, and Elk City and Clinton were other good teams in our district, and we played that we beat them, one in overtime. And so that was really exciting. That was a really good team.
So the jersey that you're wearing right now, what's that team and what's the story behind it?
Sure, this is a team called Northampton Town. They're in England, League Two, I think, perpetual or annual League Two players. I got my PlayStation 2, and I got FIFA, and so I chose this team because it was a team that I thought was close to the hometown or the town that I grew up in England. I grew up Upper Hayford in 80, 85 or 87. And so I looked on the map, and of course I might have read it wrong, but this was the team that was close to where I grew to where I grew up in England. I was in England last summer, and I realized I could make it up to where the stadium was. It's called Six Fields, and so I drove up there, went to the gift shop, took pictures of the stadium.
So think about your soccer resume, your playing resume, one page. What would it say?
Versatile player, not a whole lot of accolades. I didn't win many tournaments or make. I only think I made like two or three finals in my entire life playing. I did win a championship in rec. Um, I had a couple of accolades growing up, high school, all district, all state, 1 year. Very team player, very good at do your job. Don't bring a whole lot of creativity to the game. I don't. I feel like that's a lacking talent I have. I don't feel I'm a whole lot of very creative, but I can definitely retain possession and win possession back. So I think I would be a very valuable squad player. Someone to kind of build around at the base of midfield, maybe. Yeah, just very versatile. He can be counted on for a couple of goals, a couple of assists. Definitely going to be there to be a good defender.
As a solid resume. And pretending that this is FIFA, what would be your player rating?
If I look at my city play down here, it says I'm an 83 two-footed. I got 75 dribbling, 82 first touch, and 89 to 91 speed and agility. So I think those are pretty good ratings for our pickup games. Um, yeah.
Have your kids ever seen you play?
Yes, they have, and thankfully it was a good game, and it wasn't one of those like overzealous 40-year-old games where you're cursing at the referee or have a good blow up. No, my kids have seen me play a couple times. Yeah, I play in a men's over 40 group or team in Burke, and I think every year that I played, which is only about 3 or 4 years, my kids have always come to the final or the semifinal, the playoffs or whatever. So I think they've seen me play for a couple. They've seen me play a little bit in those during those games. Right, kids' attention spans are pretty low. They came and watched me play a 3v3 tournament in Nebraska one time. Had a 3v3 tournament there, and um, that's about it. Recently, my middle son comes a lot to watch me play my older over 40 games, but that's about it.
Do they ever give you tactical advice after the game? Tell you what you
No,
need to improve?
I asked my son that today. 'Cause I was like, hey, let's get. I was like, I gave him some feedback, and I was like, hey, man, is there anything I need to improve on? He's like, no, I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, thanks. I guess that's good. I mean, I had a couple bad passes and a couple errant tackles. So yeah, I guess him not seeing those mistakes was good.
So your kids have seen you play. Do you think that that has influenced them in any way, or how so?
So my two middles play soccer the most. He's 14, almost 15, and 12, going on 13. So I think for my older son, I think it does influence him a lot. I think it influences how he kind of reads the game and looks at it more. He and I have had a lot of discussions over the years about player development, about how he as a player well, at least under the old construct of birth year, right? He was a December birthday, so he's never going to be, bigger, stronger, faster than players in his age group, just because of where he falls in that growth development. And so, we've had a lot of discussions about, how to be a successful player if being bigger, stronger, faster is something you have to make up for. So I think those discussions influence him a lot. I think you can see it in his play. He's a lot more creative than I ever was, and has much better touch than I ever did. But you can see how that kind of influences him with how he reads the game. With my other middle, he's almost the complete opposite. He's more, and he's only seen me play a couple of times. He's a little more free spirited. Um, so I think he plays a lot more on that creativity side. I think the only thing he might have gotten from me is, just keep working. You just got to keep playing, keep making those passes. It doesn't matter if one pass doesn't go well, it's fine. You can make another one later, and just kind of keep pushing on those games. I think those are the two. That's how I see that I've influenced them, or what they've taken from me as a player.
Have your two middles influenced you?
Trying to be more creative, trying to take on players a little bit more. My older, we go out, we practice quite a few times, but he's got such good feet. I've never had the good feet that he has. So I'm always like, oh, show me that move again, slow it down. When do you use that move? Have you used it in the game before, kind of thing. And just like my other one, just the creativity that he brings. I'm thinking more of the 2 years previous when he was a little more, engaged with the game. But just his abandon. Like, he would go out and try anything, and he acts as if he's played. Sometimes he'll act as if he's played for dozens of years because of how calm he is on the ball and just making the right pass or picking out the right thing. I was never that. I'm a lot more ball retention, a lot more passing, very, very relaxed, kind of move the ball around kind of thing. So definitely the creativity from both of those kids, both of them, my kids, to be a little more creative on the ball, a little more free flowing sometimes.
Sure. What's your favorite position to play?
Ooh, I mean, I like playing I like playing as like a center mid, like an 8 or a 6. I think it just gives you a lot of opportunity, at least the way that I grew up playing that position, right? I was always up and down the field. I was left and right. I think that'd be my favorite position, or maybe, I say either in the middle or out wide, because you get to run a lot, and I kind of enjoy that part of the game, getting out and getting pace and stretching the field a little bit.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this question, but you don't have to answer it right away. We can come back to it. You're writing a book, or this podcast is a book. What's the chapter on Micah Porter going to be called? And we can come back to that for a second.
That's a good question.
It's the Micah Porter Hall of Fame, and you get to nominate 6 people into the Micah Porter Hall of Fame. These are people that you personally know or you personally have interacted with during your playing career. Who are your 6 names?
Oh gosh, who are my 6 names? I definitely like to throw my coach. Coach Johnson has to go in there, right? Early involvement in Coach Johnson. I got to play against Davey Arnaud. He was out of a very small school when I played college called not West Texas A&M, was it? I don't know. Small school, Midwestern state maybe. I don't know. One of those small schools in Texas, but I got to play against him. He was just next level, even in college. Like, I'm glad that I'm glad that he made it to the professional ranks. I'm glad that he got a couple caps. But definitely him. He was definitely a good player. Gosh, there was a goalkeeper I played with in Oklahoma, or in Omaha. He'd definitely be in there. Great goalkeeper. Massive, massive man. Just very good shot stopper. So that's 3.
You remember his name?
No. No, he only played I played 1 year of one season of indoor against him and 1 outdoor season with him. I don't remember what his name was. That's the hard part about this, all right? Can you remember those people? Do I get to nominate myself for the Hall of Fame? Is that how it works?
No, you don't get to nominate yourself. Also, another way to look at it is who's influenced you? Who's influenced your game? So when I think about it, There's the first coach that introduced me to the game, and he was my coach for the first 3 or 4 years. His name is Arnoldo Cedeno. I mentioned him last week. Another coach, high school coach, who was really important, Bruce Leader. He's on my docket. So those are the first two. There's a player that I play with in high school that I may nominate. I'm not sure. Like, I want to go through like the whole list. I haven't really thought it through completely, but he might be on that list. He's definitely on the honorable mention if he's not on my list.
Right.
When I first moved to Massachusetts, the first thing I did was I looked for a soccer league, and I joined a co-ed league through Boston Ski and Sports Club, and other random people too. And I made a lifelong friend, but we were both searching for the same thing, as like new community. And so, like, she very quickly, her network spread. She brought me along with that, so my network also spread. So I would nominate her for that. So that she's definitely on there. So that's a third person, maybe a fourth person for me. And then I'd have to think through a little bit of
Yeah.
where were the moments that meant the most to me, and who are the people that were part of that. I would need a little bit more time to come up with my six personally. We're writing a book, and it's either your chapter or it's the podcast book. What would we call the Micah Porter chapter? The chapter about Micah Porter.
Oh man, that's a chapter heading for my chapter on soccer. Yeah, what's yours? Let me hear yours so I can have some ideas.
Sure. I mean, I think mine might be love and community.
Yeah.
I might call that, because I think for me, the game has been a community organizer from a very young age to some of my most important adulthood moments when I was moving. I mean, when I moved to LA, and um, I didn't know anybody really. I remember just driving around, and I happened to come across this high school, Fairfax High School, and there were a group of guys playing, right? They were using garbage cans for goals. And so I watched them for about 15 minutes. And then I walked over and I said, is this an organized game? What is it? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we come every Sunday. And they play for like 3 hours. And I said to them, they ended up being like a bunch of Italian expats, all Italians. And I asked like, can I come play? They're like, go get your cleats. And so, not that day, but the next week I showed back on up, and I started playing with them. Is It was the experience that I looked forward to every week when I was
Hmm.
living on my own in California. Soccer was an important community organizing for when I lived in Massachusetts. And,
Yeah.
even now, I mean, being a parent, you're very busy, and it's the outlet that I look forward to every week. It forces me to get the exercise. It's something that I love doing. It connects me with
Yeah.
other people from all kinds of different backgrounds. The chapter of your book?
I'm sitting here thinking, and I think it's going to be titled "Thinking Differently." Um, so I like to, at least in my high school coaching, I've expressed to my players that I think differently about the game, and I want them to think differently about it as well. I think the players that I've had the opportunity to coach in high school, right, they all come from similar playing styles because they've been with the same coach or the same area for a long time, and I bring them in and I'm like, you just have to think differently. And I'll give two examples on this. So one is on free kicks in and around the 18, where sometimes you put it on frame. I told my kids, I was like, or I've told my players, I shouldn't say kids. I've told my players, I'm like, go be offside. Stand in an offside position. But coach, I'll be offside. I know. Just go stand there. And it's how does the defense react to you standing in an offside position? Now you're in an offside position. So when are you able to come back into play? And kind of forcing that thought process onto them. Right? And we all know like that someone else has to touch the ball, they have to be onside, right? But it's thinking differently. The other one is pressing. And if you have ever watched a high school game, it's full throttle, you know, this high pressing, kind of disjointed press, but it's always run at the ball. And in the last couple of years, I've said, we're not doing that. And we're going to let them, I was like, if they want to dribble the ball and pass it around the 18, let them do it. They're not going anywhere. They've still got 80 yards to go. Um, so that's going to be the title of my chapter. Think differently. Um, how do you get out of this situation? How do you look at being a wide winger differently? How do you play differently? How do you introduce different ideas? I had this really crazy one last season. We didn't get a chance to really implement it, but I was asking my goalkeepers, I was like, what would you guys think if I only had four guys on defense on a corner kick? Or five guys, I think it was five. So the goalkeeper plus five. That's it. Nobody else. No 11 back, no 11 players behind the ball. What would you guys think? How would you set up with just five defenders? Whew, that got a lot of looks. That got some goalkeepers worried. But I thought, if you have less people in the box, then the goalkeeper might have a better chance of coming out and getting the ball. If you have less people in the box, then they're not going to have more people in the box if you've got five guys sitting at half line, right? So think differently. How can I interact with the system and test it to be different? If I do this, what happens? If I do that, what happens? How does the other team react? And then you can use that. You can hopefully use that to your advantage.
I love those. I love those. Those are great ideas. The corner kick drill in particular, right? Then you'd have to do zonal marking. You'd have to really own it if you're going up for that. If there's a header, you need to go up and get it, whether you're the goalie
Yeah,
or whether you're one of those tall center backs.
yeah.
If it bounces around, you need to, put it out very quickly to who your outlet is. But I mean, that
Yeah,
counterattack is on. Like if you win it, like it's on. I mean, if I was an attacking coach, the first time I'd see that, I would just blink and be like, what the hell are they doing? And then the second time that
yeah,
I'd see that, say, like, this has to be two quick on the ground passes and then shoot. Like you need that corner kick to be like a service ball into the box, but not in the air. It's got to be on the ground. And then
right.
you got to, and then play the numbers. You've got four guys defending. They're not all going to be able, there's going to be an open attacker. You find the guy who's going to have the clean shot.
Yeah,
But even then, that's not a guaranteed goal. I mean, you still have a competent goalie that you got to get past. You're still going to have a defender running at you. So it's cool. It's cool thinking differently. Well, Micah, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And, all our listeners out there, do what you do on social. If you like what you heard, comment, share, tell a friend, tell a soccer parent. Until next time, take care.
cool. Thanks, John.